I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. The roll call.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
Here.
Commissioner Block.
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Manis.
Present.
And Chair Capella.
Everybody present. Public comments, the instructions for this.
Yes, spoken public comment will be accepted during the meeting in person or remotely through Zoom. Public comment in person will be taken first, followed by speakers on Zoom. You'll be called by name to speak when it's your turn. If you wish to speak to the commission, please fill out a speaker slip located near the conference room door. If you have anything that you wish distributed to the commission, include please send it to myself, and I'll distribute that information to commission members and staff. For speakers on Zoom, please use the raise hand function to indicate you would like to speak for an item. When the chair calls on public comment, click on raise hand, and speakers will be notified shortly before they are called to speak. You'll be provided with an ability to unmute your microphone and begin speaking. Public comment is limited to 2 minutes. And for this public comment, this is for items you wish to speak on that are not otherwise on the meeting agenda. So starting with you're looking for general public comment 3?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one in-person speaker, Steve Kennedy.
Thank you. Mr. Calderon, I'd like to confirm that I still have a pending proposal for video production funding. Okay, why not?
There was never a call for applications. Well, I'm sorry, this is actually a public comment, so it's not a back and forth. I apologize, keep going.
Okay, so I would like to, I'd like you to keep that on file in case I'm not around when there is a proposal, request for proposals issued. I'd like to keep it on file, have it automatically activated. Commissioners Okello and Mitten, I'd like to remind you that there is funding available from the Game Warden's Fine Money Fund, otherwise known as the Propagation Fund, per California State Fish and Game Code, Section 13103A. This money is available for videos designed for formal supervised curriculum in the schools and about the scientific principles of conservation. So please keep that in mind if and when this commission issues a request for proposal. Thank you.
Thank
you. And I don't see any hands raised on Zoom, so that's all for item 3.
Before we go to the next item, action to set the agenda, I want to thank staff for putting the purpose of the commission on our agenda so that not only the public, but we can also look at it in any stage that we make. Did I get a motion from fellow commissioners to take action to set the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to set the agenda on action item 4.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Great. To go to this fifth item, the regular agenda, we got 4 items that are listed on that. And I'd like to open discussion on 5.1. The commission's discussion on our subcommittees. I'm gonna be withhold my comments on it till the end, so are there any comments that anybody would want to make regarding our commission subcommittees?
Yes, just Thank you, Chair Okello. I see the list of the subcommittees and I have reviewed the work plan. And I'm still unclear as to how those subcommittees match up to the work plan. I think in some cases it's obvious. It would be helpful to have a status sheet of each subcommittee, not only indicating specifically which goal it goes under, but also what was their last completed action and any next intended action, so that we can kind of assess the health of each of these subcommittees and whether they are done or whether they should be carried forward. And that once we have that assessment, we could then discuss new committees that need to be formed. And I yield back to the chair.
Any other comments from other commissioners?
I would like to jump in and basically support your comments, Commissioner. Because I think that these subcommittees, we should really go through and figure out which ones are, active and relevant to, kind of the current discussion, current work plan, and then which ones are, ones we can put on the back burner. We can always bring them back at any future date. I also think that with our numbers of just having 5 commissioners, we're limited to just 2 commissioners per subcommittee. Is that correct? So, we're not going to be able to support, a huge number of subcommittees. I'd much rather be on like one subcommittee that I really commit to and really put a lot of time and energy into, rather than being fractured across multiple subcommittees. And so if others feel that way, then we may want to winnow this down to just, 3 or 4 subcommittees, the ones that we feel are most pertinent right here and now.
Yeah, and through the chair, I would agree with that. I think I understand kind of your thought about making sure that we kind of go through the whole work plan, but also I feel like maybe we do a little bit of the winnowing or cutting down of the subcommittees maybe up front, right? I know there's one that I'm on right now that was probably, it was the fuel reduction, which was a pretty hot topic. And yeah, sure, it probably is still continuing to be a topic. I don't know if we need a subcommittee on it anymore. So maybe like the low hanging fruit, we can kind of, pair off. But I do like your suggestion, Commissioner, about making sure that we kind of limit it down to something that will have a good scope, because I did feel, and I don't know about the other commissioners, being on a couple of different, subcommittees, especially when a couple of the commissioners left, made it very difficult to make significant progress.
I think I will echo that. I think it's relevant to the respective commissioners who are, let's say, overseeing certain committees. And I know with departing commissioners who were focusing on a lot of these groups are no longer on the commission. So I think maybe collectively we can focus hard on maybe certain focal points, rather than having a multitude of people on specific commissions. And I find what Commissioner Laguna said, to be factual and wholeheartedly.
And so for me, having been part of the commission that established some of these committees, and having the view over time as to how well they may have worked or they may not have worked. I do feel that, one, we need to narrow down the number of committees that we do have. I certainly do agree with that. And I certainly do agree with the proposition that we only have as many committees as the 5 members of the commission can serve on 2 committees. And hopefully, be more effective in that regard, and not be spread out. And the other thing that I would also like to say is that there are really essentially 2 types of committees. There's an ad hoc committee, which just deliberates or advises the commission within a specific time, and then it expires, they stop being in existence. And there is a standing committee, and so in talking about this issue, I think we need to think about those two distinctions. But the first thing that I would definitely love to propose is that we liquidate all the committees and start over again. And there are two subcommittees that have been added, and those ones, of course, are new ones that we should probably not liquidate. You know, the agenda subcommittee, so the vice chair and I are gonna serve on that subcommittee. And we already established a fish and game subcommittee, and that is looking at some proposal guidelines for that. So that one is recently established as well. And the fish and game subcommittee, I think, is gonna be an ad hoc committee. We're gonna deliberate, we're gonna present something, the commission is gonna make a decision, and we're gonna stop existing. So I'd like to suggest that we liquidate everything else and establish new committees based on whatever our action plan is gonna be, whether we choose to retain the action plan that we do have, or decide to revisit the entire action plan and get it redone. And so this is just purely an informational item. So we're gonna have some discussion on it, and we're not necessarily gonna take any action. But I think it's gonna prime us to be able to take action at our next meeting.
Chair Kello, through the chair, I think what you make, with the points that you make, and the points that Vice Chair made. I think it's great to take that bulldozer effect and just completely do a complete tear down and just resurface everything and see what lies in and who wants what and who wants to focus on. I'd certainly like to stay on the Transparency and Visibility Committee and in hopes that this calendar year, we somehow form conferences or continue with our engaging with county commissioners throughout interacting. But I think it is a good idea to platform that bulldozing aspect and just kind of reintroduce things.
And one thing that I failed to mention, and that's really primarily the reason that I suggested to staff that we need to put our purpose on the agenda. So whatever committees we establish need to reflect, what that purpose is. And of course, there are gonna be committees that are gonna be concentrating on just our operations, how we are operating. Do our bylaws need to be amended and so on and so forth. So there are gonna be some internal operation type committees, that do not necessarily reflect our mission. But I think ultimately, the standing committees that we establish need to reflect our purpose. And our purpose is to be an advisory body to the Board of Supervisors for matters relating to very, very specific areas. And, open space, parks and recreation, and providing a public and transparent formal item that are agendized. The thing that is missing here that I think we probably need to add to it is a fish and game, because I think our bylaws specifically talk about fish and game funds. And the fact that, the park and rec, the commission has some jurisdiction over advising the board as to who needs to be funded. And so on and so forth. So that's really primarily the reason that we put that on there. I think when we established this these subcommittees, I think we're driven by desires to what an individual commissioner is passionate in. What do they want to do on this committee? And that's the reason why one, you see a lot of committees, and two, committees that may not directly relate what our mission and purpose is. But we can revisit that topic. If somebody has a passion in something and wants the commission to, to take some, to do some work on it, then, we can make a decision as a commission that we're gonna set up that subcommittee as long as it's interesting. But the expectation obviously is that the committee has gotta do some work and, report back as regularly, as possible, to the commission. Because I think the problem we've had in the past is when it came to this item, few reports were being presented.
Little to none.
Little to none. And then, so what's the point? What's really the point? So, are we? Yes.
A question for the chair and maybe also for our friends with the Parks Department. Historically, I'm curious, have the subcommittee, the ideas for a particular subcommittee, have they been generated from within the commission? Or is that sometimes also at request of the Board of Supervisors who say, hey, we have a big issue that we need, the commission to chew on. Would you guys please make a subcommittee and work on that? Or is it just a combination?
I don't think the Board of Supervisors has directed us to establish a subcommittee.
The only one that I can think of would be the off-leash pilot that was born as a spin-off of what was originally a commission committee. So the Parks Commission established the dog work group. The group that looked at expanding access and off-leash access was really a spin-off of that committee. And that was at the
Supervisor commission.
Yeah, the board directed the department to specifically evaluate off-leash opportunities. So that's the only time that's the only one I can think of. But again, the commission had really created that first step, and that was a spin-off.
The chair, I would suggest that subcommittees also give us the opportunity to respond to the public requests. So that's another area that we're thinking about, how do we get these ideas for committees, or how do we determine when there's a need? It is from both within, but it's also our responsibility to the public too. And that, again, that could be an ad hoc committee that just looks at one issue, but it does give us that flexibility to work with that.
Nice.
So ultimately, I'd like to suggest that we limit ourselves to 5 committees. For 5 committees. We already have 2. And so we're left with coming up with 3 committees. And one of them is ad hoc. So as soon as that work is completed, then you can add either another ad hoc committee or another standing committee. But it comes from this public, meeting a public direction from the Board of Supervisors, or an interest, passionate interest from one of our members.
Could I
Yeah.
provide comments? So I like the thought of trying to get it to 5 committees, but I also don't want to limit us at, if there are some things that folks want to go after. I agree that whatever, 9 committees is obviously too much, so let's tear it down. And actually this is related to one of the questions that I had. So what are you thinking in terms of kind of like the next steps and the process? Is it like maybe next time we come around with our thoughts, or will we do this in the time between this meeting and the next meeting, and then come with a set of proposed where we can kind of vote on? Or what were you thinking would be the process for aligning on these committees and kind of?
Actually, I've not thought about it. And so, 5 minds are certainly better than 2.
Yeah.
And so, it's something for, for us, to certainly think about.
Okay.
I don't know whether we need to establish another ad hoc subcommittee. That would probably not make a lot of sense. We're adding another committee, but whatever we can do to facilitate discussion at the next meeting, because at the next meeting, we're gonna take some action.
Perfect, good.
Right.
Yeah, I think that definitely worked, because I know last time, and once again, we had maybe too big of a production last time.
Right.
But we were really trying to pull together a lot of the a lot of the diverse viewpoints of all of the commissioners at the time. It
Right,
took a while,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
hopefully we can figure out a way to kind of streamline that a little bit and
Right.
yeah, make sure that that we can get to something earlier in the year rather than have it linger.
right.
Yeah.
But if there's a committee that you want us, any commissioner wants us to put it on the table, then advocate for it and then
Yeah.
have everybody be convinced that there's a committee that at least you're gonna get one extra person willing to participate on it. But for now, the suggestion that I'd like to put on the table is limited to 5. And we already have 2. So does that conclude the discussion on this item?
Think so. I think we've discussed it more than we need to, and it's not to say it's exceeded, but we've had a healthy conversation in that regard.
So we go to 5.2, commission future agenda topics. And,
Do we have to? Public?
They should, yes, yes.
oh, yes.
If anyone would like to speak public comment for item 5.1, please raise your hand on Zoom. I'm seeing no hands raised for that.
Anyone in the room wish to make comment on 5.1?
Let's proceed on to 5.2, commission future agenda topics. 2024, and that's also an informational item. And so we do have a list. We have a list. Items for future agenda, we have a whole bunch of stuff there. So I'll open it up for any comments. Fellow commission.
Well, I have one idea for a future agenda item, or do we want to comment on the ones that exist, or we can?
We wanna
consider-
comment, we're gonna comment on the ones that exist and we can add some.
Okay,
But at some point, we got, the agenda subcommittee is gonna be figuring out how we're gonna schedule this.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Well, if it's okay with you, I'd like to suggest one that may
Okay.
fit in
Alright.
to one of these ones already. And it relates to the Ralston bike path, which is in the city of Belmont, which I just want to say a big thank you to all the different agencies and groups that work together to restore that bike path. I'm not sure if you guys know that path, but it comes off at the top of Ralston. It goes over Highway 280 and drops you right onto Kenyatta Road. And it's a major bicycle corridor. And it's the only way to safely get to Kenyatta Road from the Ralston area for miles and miles around. And unfortunately, it got closed down for almost a year because PG&E had to do a gas line underneath. And so they closed it, and I don't think they fully understood the impact on the cycling community, and I'm part of the cycling community, so had a huge impact on me personally, just because I couldn't commute the way I wanted to commute on my bicycle that way. And so when we reached out, we realized that there's a lot of different agencies involved with that path. Because I think PG&E owns the land underneath and they're doing the gas lines. We as the county, I think, and Nicholas, maybe you know this better, do we do the pavement on top of the path? Other groups are involved as well, I think,
On the.
for the Ralston bike.
Yeah, did we do the paving on top of the path?
I think we actually, or who actually builds the path? I think it's a county.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess it would, I guess likely be us.
Mhm.
It just depends on kind of each of the circumstances.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but I guess my point is there's a number of different agencies involved. And when the decision was made to close it, I don't think that it was fully thought through in terms of the impact on bicycles. And, you know, one of my passions is trying to reduce the amount of reliance on cars. So anyhow, anything we can do to promote, you know, safe routes for bicycles is a great thing. So one item that might be interesting to consider is ways to kind of make sure that we have good communication or a check So that when decisions like that are made, that we can say, hey, what are the ways to kind of like mitigate the effect? Because I think with proper planning, you know, maybe that project could have been reduced to 3 months instead of 10 months or something like that. You know, and to PG&E's credit, once they recognized the problem, they did everything they could, but you know, the die was cast at that point.
So just a quick question. PG&E had to, first of all, is it in an unincorporated area?
So it's, I think it is technically unincorporated, yes, yes.
So they had to go to the county planning commission, or they had to go to the county planning department to get some permits to do some work.
No,
Didn't-
no, through the chair. This is a really unique circumstance. And if I may, just for a moment, so PG&E owns one of their main gas lines runs through a number of our facilities and units, including Edgewood, including the Ralston Trail. I believe it goes up to JSP, and we have facilities, really PG&E facilities throughout all of our system. Because of the easement they have unilateral decision to close down whatever is necessary to do their work. Right. So we got a call from them you know, what are you, you know, give us the information. And they gave us fairly short notice, and it was before we got hit with the winter rains. And so they kept it open during the winter, and we told them you have to notice the public, right? We were not gonna make this appear as though this was a park closure. This was PG&E and PG&E's their own project. We were told the project was gonna finish during the summertime. The winter rains did not delay that. I think PG&E delayed it 4 or 5 times. And what happens is, because they have an easement, they have the legal ability to do that, and we have no ability to stop them. I do agree that there would be a great way to look at how do we communicate with PG&E. I will say, and actually Hannah sits on a group where the department is part of a group called the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network, of which many agencies have a working group on how do we work with PG&E. And I don't think y'all have made a whole lot of progress because of the legal flexibility and rights that PG&E has. And so I don't want to say this isn't a worthwhile endeavor. What I want to do is just make sure we go into this fully aware that PG&E gets to do whatever it is PG&E wants.
On their easement.
And we, on their easements, and we fight with them on a regular basis about how they notice the public, about how much notice they give us. We fight with them about how do they reduce their scope. And unfortunately, they've been very clear with us on numerous occasions. We appreciate your feedback. There's nothing you can do to stop us.
Yeah.
And so, again, I don't say that to discourage, but instead to set a framework for what is it that we actually want to accomplish, right? What does the commission want to accomplish? And make sure that we're setting reasonable goals.
Right.
So that we are working towards something that is achievable.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's super helpful for me to hear. And my guess is it really is kind of a one-off, you know, very unusual situation. But, you know, in my thoughts, if we have, you know, as a county, we have networks of bike paths, trails, all this stuff. If there's some way to keep an eye on keeping all that open, you know, as much as possible without like unnecessary closures, not that it happens all that often. I think that'd be very cool. And I was kind of wondering, does that actually fit in with the partnerships and connections subcommittee, for example? Because maybe that subcommittee, it's connecting with lots of different groups, but maybe there's groups already doing that or groups that are already aware of those kind of issues. So that may be a tie-in to that subcommittee. So that was kind of my thought process.
Thank you. So let's add it on there for now. All right, so any other additions?
Through the chair, I wanted to just make kind of a comment on a couple of these. I think it's what, 7.5 and 7.7 that are around like data metrics, like that kind of stuff. I think it's all legit, right? But that may be what we need to do, because if you remember, the normal kind of parks update, right? When we did it, or in its current incarnation, right? Was set to kind of give some of that data and metrics on a more frequent basis, and to be able to look at it more often. While I do think every once in a while, right, maybe we should have like a full-blown kind of update, and maybe we just schedule it like a couple times a year or once a quarter or something of that nature. I think we should also, just given that it's come up in more than one request on an item for future agenda, that maybe what we should do is look to kind of overhaul is a little bit too strong of a word, update the parks, the monthly parks update that the team puts together, to put maybe more I guess relevant metrics, or because I know, and at least for myself, right, and I think some of the other commissioners shared this as well, right? A lot of times we want to be able to understand, as new surveys and things kind of come in play, and new data that's being used, to understand how people are using the park above and beyond just the ticker, right, of folks that are kind of coming through. But I think if we do a little bit of upfront thinking around, like, maybe what are some additional things that we might want to be able to do, the parks department can either on, some scheduled basis, or even in the monthly meetings, be able to kind of provide some of those updates that folks are looking for.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have one more, Chair Gillo. The potentially possibility of hosting or holding a first annual retreat, in-person Parks Commission with collaborative. I'm not sure if one has already been launched, but we've been discussing this for I think last year it was discussed, but if we can potentially have a spring or summer conference of and inviting guests and other commissioners from respective commissions to all form possibly in the later spring or summer months.
And that's, is that item 7.12?
7.2 collaborates with correlative with 7.2.
Staff, related to that, is there any budget that would cover such a?
Is there any budget that what? I'm sorry?
That would cover such an activity, if we wanted to convene a coming together of this commission and representative from other commissions, in Parks and Rec commissions, or from all the cities in the county. So is that something that can be accommodated?
Through the chair, I would say we don't have that in our 23-25 budget. And I would, I think in other years, I would say, let me go back and kind of look, because 2024 is our 100-year anniversary. We are already doing more events than we typically do in a calendar year. And so we've kind of stretched our budget to we've stretched it as far as we possibly can with regards to events at this point.
And through the chair on that one, is there the ability to potentially piggyback on maybe some, because that was one of the, that was one of the things I was thinking about, like if there's already going to be like an event out at Memorial or something like that, maybe we might be able to kind of latch on and I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, so we're gonna have a number of events. Again, through the chair, we're gonna have a number of events. We'll have Hutter Park turns 50, Memorial Park turns 100. Technically, Tunitas Creek Beach turns 0. We will have a Summerfest again at Coyote Point. We will also have a event on the coast, a community event on the coast. I think those other items. No,
Th-
but yeah, so
This
those,
would be similar to what we all endured and what we engaged at Fitzgerald Marine. Something of that recourse. I think it sounds from the list of details that you're putting forth between Hutter, Memorial, Tanitas, and other respective parks, that it sounds like you've already got something paved and is going to be carved like that of 2018, 2019 of Fitzgerald Marine,
mhm,
like a social gathering like that.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
yeah, yeah, we'll have a number of special events like that. I think if those events are really, would be great opportunities for the commission to get exposure to the public, or maybe better way of saying is the public to get exposure to the commission. But if the hope is to have a opportunity for commissioners from different jurisdictions to come together and to share ideas and to brainstorm with one another, I don't see that probably being a conducive environment for that.
Let me actually take a step back and take a step forward and see if I can ask council, would it be appropriate to, let's say, contact our district supervisor or the supervisor that appointed us to see if they're willing to put on an event? I'm thinking outside the box. Because then Honorable Carol Groom, Supervisor Emeritus, put on those events that myself and Meta attended. So maybe if we potentially sales pitch in a diplomatic way relevant to the commission to streamline commissions to gather together for one night and possibly network, is say, hey, would you be willing to put on an event in your district or in a building, in a setting that's going to align ourselves with county commissioners? I don't think that's without the, you know what I mean?
Here's what I would suggest. It seems as if we're discussing the item in such great detail. So what I would like to suggest, I think the purpose of discussing the items on the future agenda was to figure out which items, one, are gonna stay on there so that, the agendas committee can start scheduling them. Saying that we're gonna talk about this one on this date, we're gonna talk about that one on that date,
If I may, are
Yeah.
you, get through the chair, Commissioner, Minna, are you asking about an event for county commissioners or an event for park commissioners?
If, it sounds like it's not within the budget, as because it's a multitude of events for 24 and 25, so. We possibly could include parks to include a county commissioner countywide, from planning to juvenile justice to women's committee to children's and youth and families committee. Just gathering in one night.
So if that, in that case, the county put that on, I think.
We do every
Commissioner
year.
Rodriguez was there,
Yeah,
I think
that was
Commissioner Laguna was there, it was like an appreciation, a commissioner appreciation event. Where all commissioners from all commissions, boards and commissions are invited to come. And so that happens annually.
Right.
And so that happened this last year, that'll happen again next year. If that's what you're kind of thinking, that's already on the books and hosted by the county executive's office.
That's not part of Parks's budget.
It's not hosted by Parks, it's not part of Parks budget, but it still accomplishes the ultimate.
But it's all county commissioners, not like
No.
cities. and-
Right.
Right. Okay.
I like your idea of Commissioner Laguna for piggy, whatever the expression.
Piggybacking.
Piggybacking on this.
Yeah.
And perhaps all that we could do is invite commissioners, so we, just to network with
Yeah.
them. We don't have to have a formal event. Just invite them and tell them, this is, we are celebrating this, please invite us to one of your celebrations
Why not?
as well, so if they're not familiar with Memorial Park, they'll get greater familiarity and so on and so forth. But just to remind us the purpose, we're looking at these agenda items to see, really what are the priority items that the commission may want to talk about right away so that the agenda subcommittee can begin scheduling. When you have our agenda meetings, we can approve this on, you know, the February agenda, the March agenda, the April agenda, and so on and so forth. So that's really the purpose of this discussion, but I want to thank everybody for very informative comments. And so when you look at this, what are the priority ones? If you could put a
Asterisk star highlight between.
three stars on what you think are most important that we need to deal with right away.
From
That-
top
that would be
three or
it.
just anything out of the 6.1 to 6.9?
Well, let's see which ones are gonna get the 3 stars first.
What's a hot topic? What's a hot stove?
Sorry, just for clarity, we're referring to the items listed in agenda item 7,
Yeah.
7.1 through
Right.
7.13.
Yeah.
Going into my original question, I think 7.3 is probably an interest one. From my perspective.
Through the chair, I would say, just given kind of all the discussion we had about all the events that are happening, I think 7.9 milestones for the Memorial 100th anniversary. We might want to add in like the 150 and like, you know, so that we can start getting a better understanding of you know, what's planned for that. The other one, and I know you, if it wasn't on the list, you might put it on, is the regularly scheduled financial, the update, right, of the second year of the
Right.
2-year plan.
Right.
I think that's another one that I'd love to kind of get, and I forget when, and sorry, Hannah, put you on the spot, but was that like April or, yeah, something like that, but yeah, I think that's another one that I think is gonna be super important.
There,
One question I had, but I know you're maybe thinking of something, so I don't want to jump in there.
Yeah.
So the update on sustainability action plan. Can we say a little more about what was behind that? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, that was my recommendation. Let me speak, sure.
Yeah.
There were, a few years ago, there was a presentation done on the how the Parks Department was implementing sustainability goals. And so I was just asking for an update on that, how that's changed, you know, maintenance and construction approaches and where we are, how that is aligned with the overall county's vision for sustainability.
I love that
That's what
one.
I was asking.
Yeah, to me, that's a really important one. Love to keep that.
So far, we have partnerships, milestone for Memorial Park. We have, I assume the update on sustainability is, you know, something of importance. And I'd like to do 7.1, but not specific to Quarry Park drainage concerns, but really more specific to how does the commission respond to public comments? You know, sort of, you know, because people come and say something and, you know, they expect some action, you know, either from the commission or from staff. So, you know, so how do we create a system whereby we say, okay, we're gonna respond in a month, so, or we're gonna respond in 2 months. And, you know, we're gonna put it on an agenda, so there's gonna be a formal staff response, so I think a discussion on that is gonna be important. So we have 5 so far: financial update, response to public, issues brought to by the public to the commission, partnerships and connections, understanding metrics and measurement of departmental, department. What metric you use it to measure success, so that. Third one, the fourth one in milestones for Memorial Park. And the fifth one is sustainability action plan, an update on that.
And I'd say there are a couple that mention the word equity, 7.2 and 7.6, and I think those can be combined. You know, perhaps we won't have an equity subcommittee any longer, but it would be, so we could roll that into what is the county's chief equity officer's vision goals. And then we could have a discussion about how that plays into park policy as well.
So any other discussion on that? Any other items you wanna bring up that we think we need to be discussing in the next,
Unknown caller.
in the next couple of meetings?
Someone mentioned 7.13. So I got.
7.13 Mid-Coast Parklands Development Fund.
Someone mentioned that. But if it's not important,
What was it again? I'm sorry.
someone had mentioned
7.13?
7.13 as a matter of interest.
7.13.
I had
The
to.
Midcoast Parklands Development Fund.
Except for 7.
But if it's not,
That's a public comment.
Yeah, through the chair, I think it 7.13 would fall under the same umbrella as 7.1, which is it came up through a public comment, so I think it would fall under that umbrella.
Okay.
Perfect.
So the agenda subcommittee is gonna prioritize those in terms of the agenda for the next couple of months. I think we'll continue that discussion at every time. Unless there are any other comments, we can move on to item 5.3. Actually, that's the one, that's the, we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna schedule that in a future meeting. That's, that's the 7.1 and 7.13. Yeah.
We'll open public comment for 7.2, or sorry,
Yeah.
5.2. So any speakers would like to speak for 5.2? Don't have a speaker card for any in-person comment for 5.2, but I do see 2 hands raised on Zoom. We'll begin with Carlisle and Young. Carlisle, you should be able to unmute.
Thank you, Hannah. I was the one that sent a letter in, I think it was for the December meeting, and they said they would schedule a different, a topic for Midcoast Parklands and the mitigation fee. And I was going to email Chair O'Kella the 2003 Midcoast Parks Recreation Study by former Supervisor Rich Gordon, which led to the establishment of the Midcoast Parks mitigation fee. But either it was an oversight or intentional, but none of the commissioners' emails are listed in the under the board. So I still would need to get his email so I can send him the backup documentation. And as far as equity goes, I think it was about a year and a half ago. That's when you guys were spending a ton of money to upgrade Seniors Creek Beach and Flood Park, and we have barely any kind of facilities on the Midcoast other than, I would call it hiking trails and stuff that, I mean, it's wonderful. We have the beach, but there's not a lot of, I guess you would say, picnic tables or a park course or anything that you might normally find. Even if you went and measured side by side all the facilities that Flood Park has, we don't have anything like that. So that's why I wanted to see it come up on an agenda. When I first got the public records requests of where all the money had been spent in the years past since 2003. I mean, when Rich Gordon was still our supervisor, I found out that at one point, rest in peace, Don Horsley had spent money to pave a road in my neighborhood in Seal Cove because the county took away a road on Ocean Boulevard that was supposed to be the coastal trail. So I still kind of question why we don't get public permission first to before that money is spent. So I'd like to see some equity be given to the Midcoast as far as parks facilities. So can somebody give me Chair O'Kello's email so I can send him the package from 2003 that was the origination for the Midcoast Parks mitigation fee?
I think she send it to staff and staff can get it to me, so.
Through the chair, all emails sent to the Parks and Recreation at smcgov.org addressed to the commission are automatically, we take it upon ourselves to send it to all of the commissioners.
Okay,
So
so
if the email comes to that account, we'll send it to you.
I'm sorry, send it to you, Nicholas, or you said, I didn't write it down, what you just said, sorry. SMC
It's the
Parks.
email in the agenda. It's the email that's listed in the agenda.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carla.
And also, really quick, this is off topic of what I raised my hand about, but you know, Supervisor Mueller does have a office here on the Midcoast. So if you wanted to hold one of those local meetings so you can meet and greet some of the other people, you know, public figures on the coast and the community, you might check with him. He already has it, so you don't have to pay to rent it or anything. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Carla. Now we have Burnett Silveri. Burnett, you should be able to unmute. And
Yes, thank you, Burnett Silvera, El Granada. They made the comment about 7.1 about the Quarry Park drainage concerns about potentially, I know you're rethinking the future agenda items about that being part of a public comment follow-up. And we did send a email to the commission with reiterating the need to keep that as a future agenda item, and I direct you to that email for justification. I just wanted to make the point that that item was added as a future agenda item by Commissioner Green at the time, asking for some follow-up from the Parks Department as to how to address that. So I don't know if it would be something completely under public comment, since it was also a question that a commissioner had at the time. I know she's no longer with the commission, but it was a follow-up on her point that had that put as a future agenda item. Thank you.
thank you, Burnett.
So you know what he's talking about, so. And it's not on our list.
It's 7.1.
7.1.
That's all for raised hands. Sorry.
So item 5.3, we're gonna erase that one, because essentially talked about it. And go to 5.4, appointment of commission liaisons, and I think what inspired this topic, I think Chair Laguna had expressed an interest of being a liaison to the Parks Foundation. And so we need to formally appoint him to be the liaison. And then it raises the question, you know, what other entities require liaison from this commission? And I know the Youth Commission it requires us to appoint a liaison. So, you know, that should certainly be on our list. And are there any other entities that the commission may feel that we need a liaison to?
Chair, briefly, you have it at a little inverse. So the Youth Commission will appoint a liaison to the Parks Commission. The Parks Commission doesn't appoint a liaison to the Youth Commission.
No, but we're thinking more of, at least I was thinking more of I think there's one time they had an event and they wanted a representative, you know, from the commission to attend that particular event. And we had a discussion about having an adult liaison from our body. So if they have those types of events and we have these adults that goes, that has already been appointed as a liaison, that would attend those functions. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Oh,
So are there any other bodies that you think we need to have, a liaison?
Through the chair, I know there was, didn't, I forget if it was the transparency and visibility or those partnerships subcommittee. I know there was a list of different organizations. And I forget who was on that, but we may want to just like, check that out and see if there are any of those entities or bodies that we might want to have some
Yeah, but
representation of.
interesting.
Yeah.
What about the Mid-Coast Advisory, Community Advisory Council? Should we have a liaison, such a body? Just a question to the commission.
Uh, Chair, are you asking, or we're taking action just on the SF Parks liaison today and then coming back at a future agenda to talk about other liaisons, or do you want to have action on all of them today?
Actually, that's a good question. This is an action item. I thought it was an informational item. But actually it is an action item, but it is not specific to the Park Foundation.
It's true.
It's not specific to the Park Foundation. It's the Park Foundation that generated the item. And so I was just thinking, the Youth Commission and any other bodies that we need to appoint a liaison to, so you can take an action that includes everybody, I think that would not be something inappropriate.
I mean, the agenda item as framed is broad enough to cover
Right.
other liaison opportunities, but
Okay.
you can certainly just act on the one and table the rest for later. It's your call.
So
I would like to appoint all the liaisons right now, so we get it out of the way.
okay, as far as your question about the Mid-Coast Advisory Council, there, being from Pescadero, there's also a Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council, so each unincorporated jurisdiction, because we don't have city councils. We have advisory councils, and there's also one in North Fair Oaks. So I would suggest if we do one, we make sure we have liaisons to all of them again. So that would be either one person going to 3 more meetings a month, which is quite a burden, or separating them.
The Fair Oaks is in my district. I could be the liaison for that. So the other two.
Well, I'm in Pescadero,
well,
that
yeah.
makes it obvious. The question, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Happy,
you know, it's whatever, you cross to a quarter
yeah, unless somebody else wants to do, I can do both coast side ones if that's makes sense. Unless it's. But
Or you're the only one that's over there, yeah.
yeah, I think so, right?
I mean, are you comfortable doing? So that might, is that an
You need
over?
my farm.
Commitment?
I believe they still have hybrid needs too, so. Could be it.
And it may be easy in the sense that, if they know you're the liaison to the park, if there are any issues that they think this commission is to look at, then they can contact you. And you can probably presumably gather whatever information is necessary to bring them to. That's one thing I don't necessarily think you have to physically attend.
And I would love clarification on, to set expectations too, as we're going to these groups, about the role of liaisons, and that we are not empowered to make decisions or even to speak with staffs, that we are only there to bring issues. Whatever the scope of that role would be, I think it would be good to have that
Yeah,
clarified.
yeah, I mean, for like PMAC, North Fairwest Community Council, MCC, I think it would be an informal kind of role. To your point, even though staff or committee members need to attend in person now, kind of absent kind of other exceptions, staff and other kind of non-decision makers can attend by video, as you were kind of implying, I think.
Yeah.
So my understanding of what you're all looking for would be more of an informal kind of go-between to kind of submit information to them, receive information to potentially bring back to this board. So I don't think you need to attend in person, and you certainly would not have kind of authorized voting authority on those boards. If I'm understanding the kind of role correctly.
Yeah, and through the chair, I think it'll depend on the type of body, like for example, for the Parks Foundation, right? You know, and I'd done this before, like early on in my time. I would provide kind of an update of all of the commission activities in the monthly in the monthly Park Foundation meetings, right? But I don't think that needs to be like the same across all these different areas. Like you're saying, I think it could be, you know, an informal kind of just making sure that, you know, we're showing our face every once in a while, depending on, yeah, what the body is.
Any other comments? And so is anybody willing to volunteer for being a youth liaison, youth commission liaison?
I was looking into potentially being that commissioner who attends the community or commission meetings, extracurricular type events that they put on. Not just maybe a few times a year that the county puts on, or the whole entire commissions like we've attended in the past. I could attend and participate in that.
So here's what we have. We have the Park Foundation, Commissioner Laguna, the Youth Commission, Commissioner Benet, Fair Oaks Municipal Council, Commissioner O'Kello is gonna do that. And the Mead Coast and Pescadero.
Or Commissioner Rodriguez.
So shall we take action to appoint all of those individuals to those commissions? Shall I get a motion to do that?
Before we get into that, through the chair, I guess, do we have that list of the different organizations as well? Or have we kind of finalized our discussion that those are the list, right? Because there are any number of different organizations that we could have liaisons to. I mean, as far as like to the Board of Supervisors, right? And so I definitely, I don't want to preclude us from, I mean, yes, if we can appoint them today, great. I don't want this to be kind of like the end of it, unless we feel like we've exhausted like all of the different areas that might make sense for us to, have relationships with and other areas. But yeah, I just want to make sure I said that, because I don't know if this is the exhaustive list. Not that I want to give everybody like way more work, but if these are the important ones, great. But yeah, I just want to make sure that we kind of keep it open in case if there's other, yeah.
Well, at your request, we'll keep it open.
Yeah.
And so we'll look at the list that was developed at this
Okay.
the partnership subcommittee, and if
Yep.
there are any entities that we think we should have a relationship with in terms of formally appointing a liaison, I don't see why we should
Okay.
not.
Sounds good.
So shall I get a motion to appoint?
Any public comment first?
Or take public comment?
So taking public comment now for item 5.4. We have currently one hand raised in Zoom for public comment for this item, Carlisle and Young. Carlisle, you should be able to unmute and begin speaking.
I just wanted to let Irma know that the Mid-Coast Community Council, they have their own website and they meet twice a month on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. They just had their meeting last night, but they definitely do it by Zoom as well as in person. But you wouldn't have to go to El Granada every time. They have it in the it's in the building where the Harbor District is on Obispo Road, or the other one nearby. And it's not necessary to attend in person. Most of the people like Ray Mueller phone it in or Zoom it in. So we look forward to seeing you. Thank you for taking it on. That's it.
Thank you, Carlisle. And that's all for raised hands and public comment.
Okay, great. So shall we get a motion to appoint all these good folk?
I'll make a
That's
motion that as a commissioner, to make a motion to set to the agenda that the commissioners appointed to the as liaisons be set.
And they're gonna be as follows, Laguna, the Park Foundation, Commissioner Manay, Youth Commission, Commissioner Gallo, Fair Oaks, Commissioner Rodriguez, Mid-Coast Community Council, and Pescadero Community Council.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Motion passes.
Through the chair, before we move on past item 5, you all did set the agenda in item 4. And then looks like item 5.3 was removed. Probably do need to take a formal action to do so, having already set the agenda in item 4 previously.
Should I welcome a motion to that effect? Removal of item 5.3 on the agenda.
I will move that we remove, remove item 5.3 to follow up on public comment discussion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Subcommittee updates. Patient gain, probably 6.9.
Do we need to formally not have updates from the other committees first, or?
In the sense it don't exist, we never appointed people.
I mean, might want to go in order of the agenda as listed.
Okay,
Just to be
all right,
safe.
all right. So the Budget and Performance Committee. We haven't met, we don't have anything. Yeah, the Dog Management Subcommittee has no membership. The Parks Naming Subcommittee, only Commissioner Keller is on it. And so it's nothing to report. The Fuel Reduction and Forest Health Subcommittee.
I'd like to make one point on that one. I think as we're thinking through kind of these subcommittees moving forward, and I should have mentioned it in the prior in the prior item. I think as opposed to having a subcommittee moving forward, maybe what we do as part of the agenda committee is to make sure that we have some form of recurring update, and maybe it's like twice a year that kind of takes the place of this fuel reduction and forest health subcommittee. The original reason why we put this thing in place was there was a lot of discussion from the public and others about how the funds were being used, who was funding all of these different efforts, and how we were prioritizing all of the fuel reduction efforts, which I think has since subsided a little bit, but I do feel like we're still gonna need, even if it's not a subcommittee, some form of recurring kind of update that we could probably schedule with Hannah and Nicholas as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
The Equity, Inclusion and Access Subcommittee. One person, and that's Commissioner Laguna.
Yeah.
Does you have any comment?
I think maybe just to continue to be thorough on this, I do feel like there needs to be some, I guess, ongoing communication of the work that's being done. But similar to the Fuel Reduction and Forest Health Subcommittee, I'm not sure whether it needs to be a full-blown subcommittee moving forward. So I am looking forward to kind of having the discussion with the rest of the commissioners to figure out whether we do indeed keep this, or similar to the others where we can maybe have some ongoing updates or additions to the monthly park update that kind of get put in that can help provide that visibility in terms of how the county parks is promoting a lot of the equity, inclusion, and access.
Very good points, but I think since we're gonna be discussing
Yeah.
this again next week, then
Totally.
we can reiterate the point.
For sure.
I think the purpose of this is really to find out, do we have any reports?
Yep. Any updates? Yep.
You know, and so then the next one is 6.6, transparency. Transparency and visibility subcommittee that hasn't met. And so there's no report. Partnership and connection subcommittee is just me on that committee, and I think I have an ongoing, I'd submitted a report some time ago that the commission never took any action on, so we'll discuss that at the next meeting. And then we have the agenda subcommittee, and the agenda subcommittee help do this agenda. And we have the Fish and Game Fund subcommittee. Because submitted a written report.
Right, we did have one meeting in December, and this is, again, the report is submitted for information only. We are making no recommendations at this point. We're going to continue our discussing along this line of thought. We will meet again later this month and provide another report to the commission anticipated at our February meeting. And any comments, feedback to this line of thinking, we are more than welcome to hear.
Through the chair, the only question I had is, so are we still feeling like we're on track to hit the proposed timelines that we had? I think there was like a June timeline for lining this stuff up and then figuring out how we move forward, or is it still kind of TBD?
I would say that is still in the forefront of our minds is to meet that time frame, but we also want to make sure that we
Oh, yeah.
have a process that makes
Totally.
sense for everyone. So we don't want to absolutely adhere to it if
Yeah.
you know, we need to figure some more things
Yeah,
out.
and I know there were a lot of open questions. So
Yeah,
yeah, no, totally,
exactly.
that makes sense. Cool.
Any other comments or questions for the subcommittee?
Course, my only concern with it is it is adding one additional step for an application, correct?
That was just a proposal,
Yeah.
right? And the thinking behind there again is we're talking about, we don't have any historical data on how much demand there would be. So how do we judge how to make, you know, because we don't really know. So
Right.
that was where we're wrestling, like, well, how do we tell? And
Yeah.
what can we do to kind of prompt that?
Right. I guess my thought is whatever system we take, I want to have, only the necessary number of, hoops to jump through.
Right.
We want to try to promote people to apply and get their ideas out there.
And yes, and we want to make sure it's equitable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Public comment on items. Kind of in bulk, item 6.1 to 6.9.
Now opening public comment for item 6.1 to 6.9. We do have one speaker slip for in-person comment for 6.9. Steve Kennedy.
Yes, and again, I'm encouraging the commissioners to read and learn State Fish and Game Code 13103A as it pertains to public applications for funding for fish and wildlife related projects, including educational videos for use in formal supervised curriculum in the schools and about the scientific principles of conservation.
Thank you. And on Zoom, we have no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, so we go to item number 7, which I think we already discussed, but since it's listed on the agenda. We have to go through each and every one of those items. So on Quarry Park, drainage
Through
concern.
the chair, interrupt. I mean, I think, I don't think we have to go through each and every item. I think
Okay.
we can kind of address the item kind of at a global level. So you've already kind of gone through and discussed them when you were discussing item 5 point, whatever it was, 5.2. So I think you can just kind of, if there are any further comments one may have about it, you could take those comments and then take public comment, and that should be sufficient.
Okay. So any additional comments, my fellow commissioners would have on what we've already spoken about?
Through the chair, it's basically just what I already talked about in 6.4. I think if we can schedule some of the forest health and fuel reduction, some kind of regular recurring update, I think that'd be a good add. So
Any other pertinent comments? There being none from the commission, let's open it up to the public.
Now opening public comment for item 7 on the agenda, future agenda items. I have currently one hand raised in Zoom for public comment, Carlisle and Young. Carlisle, you should now be able to unmute.
Thank you, Anna. You know, a lot of the community keeps asking about the bridge in the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve that's been down for about a year now. Do you have any updates for that you could share with us? I know you're not supposed to ask questions, but I didn't see it on the agenda at all. No updates? Okay.
Right, thank you, Carlisle. Your comments noted. We have another hand raised for Burnett Silveri. Burnett, you should now be able to unmute.
Okay, thank you. It might have been a little confusing in the prior comment that I made, but 7.1 Quarry Park drainage concerns. We did send an email with the belief that we think that should stay as a future agenda item on its own and not be bundled with anything else. It's a major concern for the area. You have received correspondence and photos showing how bad it can be. The email does direct you to last year when they had to divert part of the drainage from Quarry Park down additional residential streets. So this is just to address point you to that email for justification for retaining that as a future agenda item. Thank you. 7.1 Quarry Park drainage concerns.
Thank you.
I think just one comment, there was a question raised about an item that was specifically not included on the agenda. And so just from the Brown Act, if an item is not agendized, you all, should not be kind of engaging in kind of substantive conversations with a member of the public on that issue. So I just want to make sure that the public knows and the commission knows that your lack of response was not for any reason aside from the fact that this item was not on the agenda. And so it's not proper to engage in a substantive discussion on such an item.
Okay.
Just want to know for the record.
And that's all for public comment.
Okay, so are we ready to move to item number 8? I think we all are.
It would be beautiful if we would.
So we don't have to take any formal action for John, so the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Very much.